he operates and serves in his agency. He serves and focuses on outdoor brands specifically, which I find very unique. I am a lover of outdoor brands. I do actually have an outdoor brand somewhere back there in the graveyard for me that didn't take off because I couldn't get my coolers out of China during, a time that we were all involved in. But that being said, I am talking about the one and only Hal Smith, founder of 8th Street Digital. Hal, get inside the show. Get in here, Hal Smith.
Oh, I feel outbearded.
Yeah, Hal, you've got a great beard on you, my friend. I'm your audio's not coming through for me. Can you hear us, Hal?
Oh, not yet. Not yet. Just got to just the output. We'll get it. We'll get it there.
While Hal is figuring out his output, I do have to say he does have a very nice red beard. I mean, that is a very significant beard. I do feel a little outbearded right now.
Yeah, based in Austin, Texas.
There he is. We can hear you now. Welcome to the show, Hal.
Hi, appreciate it, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, man, we're doing even better now that you are here. Colin, why don't you kick this off for us, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. You have a completely unique kind of lens about D2C because you didn't start your career in D2C. You started your career actually through political advertising. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of how the advantage of starting in political advertising just changed the way you're focusing on D2C as you came into this that, other people in D2C completely miss?
Yeah. I appreciate the, I forgot you know about this, Colin. So yeah, because it's so it's a little bit of an interesting background in political advertising. So let's just forget about which side I worked on, and I'll just tell you.
Forget about
it. Yeah, everybody.
But yeah, within a year getting out of college, I worked on a presidential campaign, and the team I was working on, the focus was what's called grassroots online fundraising. And a couple of key things that happened there. So one, it's hardcore performance marketing, right? You're basically convincing someone to donate $50 to $100 off of a Facebook ad. Yeah. The second thing is it's a presidential campaign, which means in that cycle is about 250 million ad spend in 1 year, right? The next cycle after that, it was $1 billion in 1 year. Okay. So, or at least one cycle, which is basically about 2 years. Okay. So your budgets are massive. Yeah. I mean, me personally, at one point I was trying to spend about $6 million in about, I think it was 11 hours.
Brother, are you serious, man?
Yeah. Dead serious. Yeah.
Golly.
So you can imagine, and then the third thing is the type of media buying that we were doing. So that media buying at that time, some people have done this before in other contexts, but what we did is this kind of high volume testing. So I would be running tens of thousands of ads at a time. And you can imagine if you're spending a couple $100K an hour, you're learning super, super fast, right? Because you can just launch these tests. And you can create these huge kind of matrices in what you're testing across audiences, formats, different. And then here is different voter groups and different messaging that might get them to donate at, higher levels. And so I was exposed to this. I didn't know that this was something that was really unique. And it wasn't me that was coming up with this. It was, the guy who's the director of advertising. But I worked for him and I learned this model. And then after that, I ended up doing this for a couple other kind of Fortune 100 brands. And then I, kind of get into D2C eventually. And I'm like, wait a second, this model is something that no one else is really doing. And I would say it's changed a lot recently because of just how Meta works with Andromeda, with Jim, because a lot of that now is just kind of automated on the back end and just how the machine learning works. But yeah, the kind of mindset for me was definitely heavily ingrained in how I operate and think now. And it's all just test and learn, right? Fundamentally. So just much bigger scale. So
Hal, I'm blown away by that. I'm blown away by that because that level of scale that you guys were deploying ads at and budget at is insane. And this is
Out of college.
Yeah, out of college.
Yeah.
It's a great point that you bring up, that this is like hardcore performance marketing. Because I mean, you're looking for donations. And I never had considered, like, actually that may be the best kind of background for getting into D2C, is going where, man, you need people to get dollars out of their wallet and donate to you in thousands by the, one would hope so, and do it at massive scale. That is incredible, man.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I always thought it was easier going into, advertising for a product, because I'm like, at least somebody's getting something out of it, right? They get the product. In political fundraising, it's like, they just ship the money away and they're like, I hope that did something. So it's wild.
That's
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, brother, so you make the move, you make the shift from those giant Fortune 100 political campaigns. You make the move over to D2C. I think you launched H Street in 2020. Is that right?
Yes and no. I launched it in 2020, but that was basically me consulting. I actually was doing consulting with some political groups. But then I kind of shut it down a little bit and then relaunched it in 2022 with that focus on D2C. Yeah.
Tell me about your focus on outdoor brands specifically. I do have a unfortunately dead outdoor brand in my history. I had a cooler that would hold ice 23% longer than Yeti, and it was going to be made in America and all. Anyway, but tell me about this focus, because I find it unique. I don't know anybody else in our space who is intently, specifically focused on outdoor brands. Why? What's the advantage with that kind of focus?
Yeah. So a couple of reasons. I'm going to throw out just a couple of random ones. You'll kind of see how it's all connected in a second. But one is we started, for some reason, picked up a couple of outdoor brands, and we crushed it for them. And I was trying to figure out why. So like one is CPMs are really cheap. And so like a beauty brand you work with, CPMs are like $180. Outdoor brand, $6.
For sure.
Seriously. And it's like, and it's like, wait a second, the math on this is really, really good. Like, just because the cost to advertise is so low. And then another thing is, a lot of these products have really large addressable markets. And it's like, we can actually scale these brands really aggressively. And then all the agencies that these brands had before us didn't understand D2C performance marketing. They were all like PR agencies with a focus in the outdoor space, and they did paid media as an add-on. And so I realized it's like that kind of concept is like the Peter Thiel thing, but like competition is bad. And I was like, there's no competition in this space for D2C performance marketing. And I realized if we just planted the flag in this space, it's like we are literally the best in the world at D2C performance marketing for outdoor brands. And that is true.
Smart.
No one else is doing it. So
I love that.
So the other thing is, I'd say some of the concerns is the market size is much smaller. So like if you go into health and beauty, that's just massive. You get massive addressable markets, so many different brands. And so it's easier to kind of break into that as a service provider because there's so much opportunity. Outdoors is much smaller. You really do have to get focused, and you're going to have to build a good reputation fast, because you really need to be working with the top 10% of brands.
Yeah,
that's a much smaller pool. Yeah. So that's going to be a challenge for sure. And I would say the other thing is the products are different. So a lot of outdoor brands, to your point, and I think your idea is they're high quality products made in the USA, which means they are bad margins.
Bad margins. Yeah. That's true. I can think of some of my friends that own some right now, and they're bad margins, man.
It's rough.
So that's tough. That's tough for D2C performance marketing, right? And a lot of them are not repeat purchase products, and they're not
exactly.
Yeah. And so there's a challenge there. And I think there's enough brands in the space that do have high enough margins and that do kind of lean we will be successful kind of driving repeat purchases with, but that's going to be a challenge for us too. And that I think is a big reason why a lot of performance marketers haven't really gotten into the space. It's like, we can't have a subscription with this, so therefore it's going to be significantly harder. Right.
Interesting.
But I think there's still enough brands and still enough opportunity. And the key thing is the scalability of a brand is really defined by the addressable market, how big the size of that is, how much you can scale into it, and then the math of the brand, like the math of the company. And then I think finally it's like their operational maturity and sophistication. And there's plenty of brands that I've spoken to or I know about where I'm like, we can build a pretty strong agency here and service these brands and be successful. So I'm still very bullish on it. And yeah, no one else is really positioned in this space. And I think that's a good thing for us.
Wow, that's smart, man. I love that.
Well, Hal, I'd love to dive into the math on that, because you guarantee 25% more new customers in 90 days. Most agencies will not guarantee anything.
Yeah.
First, how do you underwrite that promise? And then what does the due diligence look like where you can dive into that? And then you're like, great, I can take on this client because we have this promise. Let's rock and roll.
Yep. So it's a great question. The due diligence is we have to do an audit before we work with them. Our audits are true due diligence. It's not like, kind of like, hey, we'll just poke a couple holes in things and present it to them and for the sale, right? Like it's actually for us. And so and we're looking at a lot of different pieces of how they operate. And we get access to all their ad platforms, their Shopify, Google Analytics, anything else that we think is going to be helpful there. But we have a very methodical way of kind of going through each piece of the business and being like, how healthy are they truly? How they, how successful have they been in the past, et cetera. And so coming out of that audit, I have like basically 80 to 90% confidence if we can hit our guarantee. And then, it's just a matter of the client wanting to work with us. And then once we start working with them, if we're able to kind of move across, we present like a 90-day plan. And really what we're trying to do there, and I should have started with this, but when we do the audit, we look at like 5 key, what I call performance levers. We look at their offer strategy. We look at their creative. We look at their media buying setup, like in ad platforms. We look at their conversion rates on different landing pages and overall just kind of traffic quality on their pages. And then we look at how their pixels are set up and how they do reporting. That's our audit. And that's what we call our performance levers. When we figure out some big kind of gaps or key constraints in each of those areas, we then will put that into this 90-day sprint where we try to solve for that as quickly and as aggressively as possible. Once that's removed, we're good to go. And generally, we do a much better job actually than increasing new customers by about 25%. Like we've just doubled revenue for clients like within 30 days. But the 25% is a pretty, it's pretty safe for us to also guarantee that, especially when we do that audit. But I would say like it's very intensive. It takes our team about 2 weeks and they hate doing it, but it works. So yeah.
Nice. I can totally see that happening. It's like, hey, great. We've got a new potential client coming on here. And I was like, oh gosh. I got another thorough audit to go through here. But to me, this kind of seems like some secret to your sauce here. I know I've been in the agency world a couple of times, and it really seems like there is great advantage to taking that time and going through a very thorough vetting and then onboarding process such that you know exactly where they are and they know exactly what to expect. And that really being a winsome beginning to the relationship. I mean, do you agree? And what does that look like? I mean, what questions are you asking? Are you asking questions about their competitors and things like that? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, 100%. I really appreciate you saying that because, frankly, there's a lot you have to do and just figure out like the reality of how the ad accounts are set up or what's going on in Shopify, their margins on their products, et cetera. Like there's some very just tactical things. But honestly, to kind of what you're asking here is I think the biggest problem that agencies have and the reason why people can't scale at the rate they really want to is there's a misalignment on expectations and there's no communication around those expectations, right? Yeah. So we had a recent issue with the client that actually was on a call this morning with that client and their growth strategist. And we were talking about this at length, but what we really try to do is we really try to understand their brand and their expectations on creative. Then we really try to understand their expectations on performance, what those key KPIs are, how do they measure those KPIs, how do they understand them? Because a lot of times, and the biggest issue we experience is a client thinks they communicate their brand to us, or what their expectations are in creative. And they haven't really said anything. Like I'll look at the call transcripts and be like, there's nothing said here. And so we have very specific questions we ask in the onboarding, but then they don't want to answer those questions. Like, I don't have time for this. And so it's like, well, you don't have time to answer the questions and you don't want to tell us about the brand. But if we ship you a batch of ads and you freak out about it, then like what gives, right?
Right.
But that happens in lots of different areas, especially on KPIs, right? Like it's, a client might say, we're looking at this triple attribution, triple whale metric, and we think that's really important, and that's all we care about. And we're here just purely looking at Shopify revenue, right? Maybe we're looking at some kind of proxy metrics in the ad accounts. But if there's misalignment on what we think success is, that creates a ton of conflict. So a lot of what we're doing in the onboarding process too is like trying to pull out these like unspoken expectations and really get them into the open, and then talk about them and make sure we have alignment there, because that's half the battle. Like half the battle is just doing the work and the tactical stuff. Sure, that always works. And I wish as a media buyer that we could just go do that all day. But the other half is just the expectation management and communication with clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
That makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. When I think about outdoor brand demand, I think a lot about the fact that it's seasonal. So you have hunting season, you have ski season, fishing season. Most D2C brands, they always want to be on. They always want to be selling everything. They want to be scaling up into the right. How are you building acquisition systems that actually pull in demand in the off season without actually burning a ton of money for the brand?
Colin, so just for the record here, I did not tell Colin to ask me these questions, but these are phenomenal questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. It ties into what we talked about right at the beginning, but I've learned that you effectively have an on-season and off-season strategy for an outdoor brand. It's just like in politics. So in politics, you basically build up to the last like 2 or 3 months leading up to election day. And a lot of in the fundraising world, what you're trying to do is you build this massive bank of donors. And so it's people who have donated a little bit in like early on, or they've at least submitted their email. And you create this massive database of people, and you create this relationship with them over like a year and a half. And then the last, couple of months leading up into the election, then you raise all the money from them, right? And then you go out and you engage with them, and you kind of, get them. It's called like GOTV, get out the vote. But what I learned with outdoor brands is you have to think in that same way. You have to think in these cycles, right? And so a lot of what you're trying to do in the off season is build the brand and build relationships with prospective customers, and really kind of build up hype around, like, let's say new apparel, like a new apparel line that you're launching right before the season or things like that, right? And then once you hit the season, then you're basically scaling the crap out of what you're doing in new customer acquisition or with existing customers in revenue. But you have to put on those two hats and think on season, off season strategy, and it works. But it's like you're basically you're farming, then you're harvesting, right? And outdoor brands really have to think in that way. And oftentimes, like, people think like D2C is always on, always scaling. It's not always true. Like, you have these kind of big peak, like tentpole moments to like harvest customers, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for example, or like, spring break or whatever it might be. But it's actually these kind of peaks and valleys that happen throughout the year. So it's the same thing. It's just D2C in a more like evergreen brand just has more opportunities to do that. In the outdoors, you really just have to think, peak season, off season. So,
yeah.
I think that everybody should go work in political advertising. I think because you've got a lot of background here that really has set you up for success in the D2C world. That's fascinating, man. Tell me. I don't mean to like go on this more, but just because it's been so relevant. Now, what's the difference? Are there differences in behaviors that you have seen, like with your previous background, when it comes to, kind of a donor, versus somebody who's buying something for a lot lower amount? Or are there differences in their psychology, or is there kind of, neat parallels, like, the harvesting, like the prepper, the sowing and the harvesting in that realm? Any differences in that sense?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Okay, so one thing is political donors are it's basically like an extreme power law. So like 90% of people donate, or sorry, like 10% of people will donate like 90% of money donated in campaigns, right?
Wow.
And e-com brands kind of vary, but not all of them are at that extreme power law. Like you do have like 20% core customers, that might be 80% of revenue, but oftentimes it's a little bit wider than that. It's like 40% of people that are 60% of revenue, right? But political is like heavy on that. So you have these hardcore true believers, they're watching TV all day and they're just on their phone donating. Like and you want to go find those people and really kind of tap into that and do a lot of optimization in your creative, et cetera, to go get those types of people. And there's a lot of modeling on the back end to kind of figure out the psychology of those people and how they, what messages they respond to best. So that's a little different. It's a little bit more extreme. I would say it's a little bit different energy in why people are donating versus obviously why people are purchasing a product. Oftentimes with donating, you have this very emotional thing that's a political, topic, right? And it's like this bad thing is going to happen, and so you got to stop it to go donate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in like DTC performance marketing, it's like you really try to understand these different customer personas, and then like the kind of either like aspirations they're wanting to purchase or the pain they're trying to solve, right? It's very different. It's more practical, right? What else? I would say
it's interesting. Go ahead, Hal.
Oh no, it's just the seasonality aspect is a thing too. Like in political, like when you're off, you're off. Like people don't really care. And it's heavily affected by the news cycle. So like the news cycle will ramp stuff up, right? And then all of a sudden people get more jacked up, and then it all kind of dies off because they'll kind of switch gear. The news cycle will switch gears, and it's not about the elections as much. So that drives a big effect on behavior.
I think the unique power law that you mentioned about, a small slice is going to make up 90% of your donations. I definitely find that to be true when it comes to SKUs on a store. There's usually a few SKUs that are going to make up 80+% of your revenue. There are some that people love, and everything else is just kind of an afterthought. I find that to be interesting. There's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah. I mean, Hal, go for it.
Oh no, I would say one thing that has been a consistent theme that I'm really trying to figure out all the time is like, what are like kind of power law situations, or what are like normal distribution situations, right?
Interesting.
And you find that very frequently with like, it's either like your core customers or it's like a SKU that really is driving most of your revenue. But those happen in lots of different areas. Ads, right? Ads are always kind of operating in power laws. So you have that one killer ad that just takes all the spend and drives all the performance, right? So
It's true. It's true.
Hal, you have managed over $500 million in digital ad spend in your career. That's a little bit close to $1 billion that you've managed. You've probably had some expensive lessons along the way. What's an expensive lesson that you learned from a campaign that maybe went sideways?
Oh God. So that's a fun question too. I remember it's like Brett Favre has like the record for all the best things and the worst things. It's like most interceptions, also most touchdowns. So I think for anyone who's like a media buyer to understand is like, whoever's managed a lot of spend or has a lot of experience, they basically done all the big things and also made all the big mistakes. And that's definitely true. A couple lessons. I was working with a bigger corporate client. It's a bank, and we were launching a Snapchat for him. He was like doing credit card sales. And this is just a small one, but I always talk about it because it's so painful. At that time, you're working with these types of clients. This is kind of alien to D2C people, but you have to set up like click trackers and impression trackers. And it's a way for like a agency to have like a third-party audit of, are you actually delivering spend towards, these ads or these specific landing pages? And Snapchat had like kind of vague titles for like the places where you put those links. And so I switched it. I put the impression tracker links where you put the click tracker links. So the issue with that is people are clicking on ads and just hitting a 404 or just like a blank thing. And we ran about 120K of ad spend on that.
Brother.
over the course of about like 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, that was brutal. Yeah. And of course, you know, in that game, you have to do like what are called make goods, right? And so they just want a full refund of that 120K. And I'm like, that's more money than I get. So that was really tough. And you know, I would say that actually the important lesson I took out of that is just how important it is to be transparent and be direct and straightforward with your clients, right? Because like everyone, shit happens, and also there's insurance agencies have for this. And you know, what's it called? Like, shoot, I can't remember the name of it. So some type of liability insurance, but yeah, I think it's just super important because people understand that, and you just got to be straightforward. And the worst thing you can do is try to hide it or lie to someone about it, or just not get it out in the open and talk to people as soon as possible so you can start to address the problem. That's something I really try to drive home with our like growth strategists and media buyers. It's like, you know, everyone makes mistakes. It happens all the time. Wow. Some of them are super painful. But you know, all you got to do is you got to let people know, got to get out in the open and start to try to figure out how to solve for it. Right. I think I'm trying to think of something maybe that's a little bit more interesting besides just like a dumb.
Well, that one is interesting. That one is interesting, Al.
Yeah. Well, another kind of a good one is this a little nuanced, but a big lesson learned with a client we had that was doing lead gen is understanding like you know, just the importance of the full funnel and really tracking the quality of like a lead all the way down to an actual like sale. And there was like a big kind of time frame. It was about like 3 weeks from when a lead was submitted to where that sale was closed. Yeah. And realizing like you got to understand that latency in time and how you make decisions on what's working and what's not working, right? Because you might be running ads and be like, oh, great, this is great in terms of leads. It's, you know, getting all this volume, whatever. And all those like 3 weeks later were terrible leads.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that client has spent like a month's worth of budget and they're like, our salespeople are,
they're
and
mad.
So that's like, So I don't know. I hope those were helpful. Yeah.
They are. Hal, I am convinced now that we've got to get together, man. I'm glad to know you.
For sure.
And I want to introduce you to some of my outdoor friends. And you need to be at the Supper Club. He needs to be.
He's coming.
Are you coming?
Yeah, signed up. Yeah.
He's coming.
Oh, great. Let's go, Hal.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby.
He's locked in.
Great, man.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get together soon then. Hal, we appreciate you coming and talking with us about all of that. Man, it's incredible how political advertising, there's a lot that translates over to D2C. I mean, we love to see what you're doing. We appreciate you coming. Look forward to having you back, brother. Thank you, man.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys having.
Wow.